Hey guys, it's Carl. This is the 2022 MacBook Air, which has been out now for the past 6 weeks, close to 2 months. I've used it since then, and I honestly think this is the best Apple laptop to get for 95% of you out there, whether you're students, whether you're going back to school, whether you're a business professional, just a person that needs a new Apple laptop. There's a few little niggles which I don't really like, which we'll get to in a second, but the biggest thing, I guess, to talk about is maybe the color choice. So I, of course, have the brand new one in Midnight. Although it looks great out of the box, you can probably see on video here how many fingerprints this thing collects. And even from my initial unboxing 6 weeks ago, it was already smudgy. It has gotten even worse. It does come in the 4 color options. I still think silver, the classic silver, is my favorite. Obviously, this looks good. It's different. It really reminds me of the OG black MacBook that I actually had originally when I was a student. So the best thing about this laptop has to do with its name, the MacBook Air. It's the size. If you're coming from an older MacBook Air with the wedge style shape, this is being redesigned to mimic the 14 and 16-inch MacBook Pros. I'm actually coming from my 16-inch MacBook Pro, which used to be my main device. So I have a really good comparison between the Pro and the new Airs, and this has just been an absolute joy to travel with. So I just went to Europe. Actually, this thing was living in my bag, and it is so much lighter, so much noticeably easier to carry around than the 16-inch MacBook Pro. Obviously, if you're comparing this between the 14, there is that small difference in size, but it's the weight as well. This thing is razor thin. It's 1.24 kilograms, 1.13 centimeters thin. It is so easy to travel with. So if you are a student that needs to bring this to a class, if you are someone that brings a laptop to different meetings, if you travel with your laptop at all and value, I guess, portability, this is the best laptop to get, no brainer. With the size and I guess overall thickness, you sacrifice some of the ports. You have the 2 USB-C ports on one side, the new MagSafe port, which of course, if you do get Midnight or a funkier color, you have that braided cable to match. I love that. And on the other side, you just have a 3.5mm headphone jack. The thing I really missed coming from my MacBook Pro was the SD card slot, and being a creator, just being able to pop a card into the side of my laptop, I really miss that, and I do have to live the dongle life, unfortunately, which I don't really get because an SD card slot could definitely fit in this form factor. It isn't any bigger than a USB-C slot, so I do find that a tad bit strange. So the ones I've been using, or the dongle that I've been using, is from Lexar. So this is their new CF Express Type A / SD card slot reader. Because I've upgraded to their new Type A cards, these things are blazingly quick. So we're actually recording with one right now in my Sony. It's the one that I took with me on my travels. This thing is an absolute beast for SD cards. It's got read speeds of 900 megabits per second with write speeds of around 800. And if you have a workflow that supports 8K footage, which I'm still shooting at 4K, which is definitely overkill for YouTube, which all of this laptop actually handles. This thing is kind of the perfect combo. And if you are rocking a camera that can take their new CF Express Type B cards, like some of you Canon shooters, this thing is more than double. It has read speeds of 1900, write speeds of 1700 megabits per second. So I think having this combo, this dongle combo for any content creators, for anyone that uses SD cards, you will need something like that, as you can't slot them right into the computer, which is okay. It's a small little workaround, but definitely check these out, which will be linked below if you want to upgrade. And in terms of performance, like I mentioned, I think most people that grab the MacBook Air probably won't be editing 4K video, but you can do that on this machine. And like I said, coming back from my 16-inch MacBook Pro, which handles all of my workflows here, I was able to handle everything that I've been running off of this channel. The last couple of videos actually have been edited on this machine. I will say scrubbing through the timelines is just as quick as my 16-inch MacBook Pro. Maybe the only difference is publishing time. So I'll throw some B-roll over top here of the different publishing speed. I've rendered the exact same video, the same output on Final Cut Pro, and you can see that it is significantly faster, especially for longer videos on the 16-inch MacBook Pro. So as long as you're okay with waiting maybe a couple extra minutes at most, this machine is once again, near perfection. So it does have the new M2 chip, and I would kind of line the M2 chip up still underneath the M1 Pro, of course, underneath the M1 Max, which is still at the top. It is around 20-ish% better than the original M1, which I still think is awesome value, but expect to see the next gen of Apple computers running either the new M2 chip, which we'll see in the, I guess, next to come updated Mac Mini, and of course the MacBook Pros will have some sort of M2 Pro or M2 Max when those get refreshed probably by the end of this year. And especially when you consider the price of, say, the MacBook Pro, the 14-inch starts at $1999. This is US dollars, so depending where you live. The MacBook Air starts at $1199, and my recommended spec is just the option above that. So spec this with 16 gigs of RAM instead of 8, just to increase the longevity. So that's $1399, and I think that model, it only comes with 256 gigs of storage. It's on the small end. I would have loved to have seen this start at 512, which is just maybe one of my extra little niggles, but for that extra money, I would say just buy an external hard drive instead. And I'll give my friends from Lexar another little plug. This is just a gaming SSD, slightly overkill for most people, but I use this to edit my 4K footage off of. If you just need a hard drive to store extra files, you can choose something smaller or even slower for a cheaper price. So coming to the rest of the device, Liquid Retina, 13.6 inches. I think most people upgrade their laptops every 4 to 5 years. So if you're coming from an older style MacBook Air or even any Apple laptop in general, we do have an updated display. It is not ProMotion like the MacBook Pro, so it doesn't have that fast refresh rate. It does get, though, up to 500 nits of brightness, and even using this outside on a balcony in the south of France, one of the brightest places on Earth, I was able to get work done. It does have reduced bezel sizes. It does have this little notch, which if you haven't seen before, honestly, you'll get used to it in about a week. It does have an updated 1080p front-facing cam, which is great for Zoom calls, which is great for FaceTime, which is great for most things virtual that I think a lot of us still do. The keyboard has kind of been great if you've used an Apple laptop in the past couple of years. Since they've moved away from the butterfly switches, you'll feel right at home. Once again, trackpad, which I still think is industry leading. It's nice and large, has great tactile feedback. Once you've used this, it's tough to go back to anything Windows-based. Overall, it is a very solid laptop. There's a couple other things I'm just looking at, like Touch ID if you like to use. It's secure, it's safe, it comes in this honestly great little form factor that I just can't get over. It just makes carrying this such a breeze, and of course, coupled with the great performance. The last thing, which I kind of forgot to talk about, which you don't really think of when buying a laptop, is the battery life. I'm getting around 16 to 17 hours per charge, which is pretty ridiculous. Obviously, that decreases if I'm pushing it a bit harder doing some video editing. But if you haven't experienced battery life on a new M1 or M2 based MacBook with Apple Silicon, it is so nice. You barely need your charger. And even on super long travel days, I actually forgot my little dongle converter from North American to UK chargers. I was actually in Oxford, so I couldn't charge this as much as I wanted. I didn't have to worry about it at all. I actually edited a couple Samsung reels, the ones that I posted of the new Z Fold 4 and Flip 4, which review, I'm working on that on this machine. I was able to handle all of that plus more without having to charge up my device. So honestly, for 95% of you, I'm gonna stick by that. Buy this laptop if you can risk the fingerprints. Get Midnight, it's a unique color, but if you can't stand that, go with something a bit safer. Hope you guys enjoyed my review for the MacBook Air. Honestly, my favorite laptop that has come out this year. It's small, it's mighty, it's light, but does everything that you need to get done with. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I will catch the rest of you in one of my next vids. Peace!